Hello, I'm Sensei Alex Kakio. Welcome to this evening's meditation and sutra study. The topic for tonight's discussion is skillful means and the parable of the burning house. Our practice will consist of a 15-minute guided meditation, a reading from the Lotus Sutra, a Dharma talk, followed by a Q&A. These teachings are offered free of charge, but if you'd like to make a contribution, information for that is available in the description for this talk. So we'll start this evening, like we always do for meditation and sutra study, with our guided meditation. I'll give you a moment to get into position for that. The only rule is that you need to be comfortable, and then you need to be in a place where you can hold still for about 15 minutes. So, if you feel comfortable, you can close your eyes or keep them half closed and pointed downwards at a 45-degree angle. That way we can limit distractions. Keep the back straight to ensure easy breathing. And we'll start by simply breathing in and out through the nose. Sending signals to our body that we're safe, that we can relax, that we have permission to just do nothing for a while. And as we continue breathing, on every inhale, we poke out our belly button ever so slightly, almost like we just had a big meal. This opens up space in our stomach cavity, allowing our diaphragm to drop into that space, giving us a good full lung full of air. Again, signaling to our body that we can relax. And if our mind wanders, that's okay. It's what minds do. We just notice our thoughts, say hello, and then bring our focus back to the physical sensations of our breathing. The movement of air in and out of our lungs, the feeling of our diaphragm expanding and contracting. And we'll just do this for about 2 minutes. We'll just breathe. And I'll keep time, so you don't need to worry about that. Wonderful. Now we're going to continue breathing. Continue with the meditative breath. And we'll move to the next phase of the meditation, which is a visualization exercise. We'll start by envisioning a ball of energy in our hara, the space behind our belly button. This is the seat of our spiritual power. Whatever our favorite color is, that's the color of the energy. If our favorite color is blue, the energy is blue. If our favorite color is red, the energy is red. We're going to treat this energy like we would a campfire that we want to get going. We breathe in. And with every exhale, we envision ourselves breathing on the fire of our spiritual power, making it bigger and brighter. And we'll just do this for about 2 minutes. I'll keep time. No need to worry about that. Just breathing on the fire of our spirituality, making it big and bright as we can. If our mind wanders, no worries. We say hello to our thoughts and bring our focus back to the breath and the visualization. Good job. Now we're going to add something to the visualization. We're going to send our energy downward to the center of the earth. And once we get to the center of the earth, we'll find an energy that's identical to the energy in our hara. If our hara is green, the energy at the center of the earth is green. And we're going to start drawing that healing earth energy into ourselves. With every inhale, the energy comes up from the earth, building our own spiritual power. And with every exhale, we blow on that energy, making it stronger still. We'll do this for about a minute. I'll keep time. Just drawing the energy of the earth into ourselves and magnifying it with every breath we take. Noticing that even as we pull energy from the earth isn't depleted. The more it gives, the more it has to give. Wonderful. Now we'll envision a second energy channel going from our hara, that space behind our belly button, where spiritual energy is located, and it goes up, 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 up our spine, past our solar plexus, past our throat, all the way up to the top of our head. Now we're going to do something slightly different. With every inhale, we'll pull that energy up from the center of the earth, storing it in our hara. And with every exhale, we'll push it out past our solar plexus, past our throat, out the top of our head, until we shower ourselves in that healing earth energy. We breathe in and pull energy up from the earth. We breathe out, push it out the top of our heads, and cover every inch of ourselves in healing spiritual light. And we'll do this for about 2 minutes. I'll keep time. If our mind wanders, that's okay. Just say hello to our thoughts. And bring our focus back to the physical sensations of the breath, and to the visualization. Great work. Now it's time for us to slowly bring our meditation to a close. So we envision that energy that we've been extending out the top of our heads, that geyser of light, that volcano slowly getting smaller and smaller, until eventually it barely reaches the top of our head. Then with every exhale, it only reaches our throat, our solar plexus, until finally that spiritual energy is resting right where it began, in our hara, the space behind our belly button. And as we close off that energy channel, we then send our focus downwards to the earth. And we slowly close off that channel as well, until the only thing we have is the energy in our belly and our breath. And we gently remind ourselves that this energy is always there. And we can always call on it whenever we need to. But But now it's time to move on to the next part of our practice. So we slowly come back into our bodies, leaning our heads to the left, then to the right, alternating once or twice. Then we bring our heads back to center. And if our eyes are closed, when we're ready, and only when we're ready, we open them. I'll give you about 30 seconds to do that. And then we'll move on to this evening's reading of the Lotus Sutra. Wonderful. Thank you for doing that practice with me. So for tonight's reading, we'll continue with our study of the Lotus Sutra. And we'll be reading the parable of the burning house. If the Lotus Sutra is anything, every sutra sort of has a central teaching. So the Pure Land Sutras teach about Amida and the primal vow. The Vimalakirti Sutra teaches about the importance and the power of lay practice. And I would say the central teaching of the Lotus Sutra is the teaching of upaya, or skillful means. And tonight's reading will go into what is skillful means, why is it important, and what does that have to do with, amongst other things, our own enlightened nature. Before I begin the reading, I'll remind you, if you enjoyed this evening's practice, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. That way you can be notified and participate in future live streams, which happen every Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard. So in this reading, Buddha is speaking with Shariputra, and he says the following. Then the Buddha said to Shariputra, "Did I not previously tell you that all the Buddha Bhagavats explain the Dharma with various explanations and illustrations using skillful means, all for the sake of highest complete enlightenment? All of these teachings are for leading and inspiring the bodhisattvas. Moreover, Shariputra, I will now clarify what I mean with illustrations. Those with wisdom will be able to understand through these illustrations. O Shariputra, suppose that there were an aged and extremely affluent man, either in a town, city, or country, who has immeasurable wealth, abundant estates, mansions, and servants. He has a spacious house, yet it only has a single entrance. Suppose many people live there, as many as 1, 2, or even 500 people. The buildings are in poor repair, the fences and walls are crumbling, the pillars' bases are rotten, and the beams and framework are dangerously tilted. Suddenly and unexpectedly, fire breaks out everywhere, setting the house swiftly aflame. The children of this man, 10, 20, or 30 in number, are in the house. The affluent man, seeing the fire breaking out everywhere, becomes alarmed and terrified. He thinks, I am capable of escaping through the burning entrance in safety, but my children are absorbed in play with the burning house, and are not aware of the fire, do not know, are not alarmed or terrified, and the fire is approaching them. They are not troubled about their suffering, nor do they intend to leave the house. O Shariputra, this affluent man thought, since I am still physically strong, I could take the children out of the house in folds of my garment or on top of a desk. He further thought, there is only one entrance to this house, and it is very narrow. The children who are immature and still unaware are attached to their place of play. They may fall into danger and be burned by the fire. I should now tell them of the danger. This house is already burning. They must escape as quickly as they can to avoid being burned by the fire. After considering this, he urged the children according to this thought. Children, run out immediately. Although their father, in his concern, has given them the proper advice, the children are immersed in their play and do not accept it. They are neither alarmed nor afraid and have no intention of leaving the burning house. Moreover, they do not even know what a fire is, the condition of the house, or what they may lose. They merely run about back and forth looking at their father. Thereupon the affluent man thought, "This house is already engulfed in flames. If my children and I do not get out, we shall perish in the fire. I will now use skillful means to help my children escape from this disaster." Since the father already knew that his children were attached to various rare toys and unusual things that each of them liked, he said to them, "The toys you are fond of are rare and hard to obtain. If you do not take them, you will certainly regret it later. Right now, outside of the house, there are 3 kinds of carts. One is yoked to a sheep, one to a deer, and one to an ox. Go play with them, children. Run out of this burning house immediately, and I will give you whatever you want." The children, hearing what their father had said about the rare toys, became excited. And in their eagerness to get to them, they pushed each other out of the way in a mad rush out of the burning house. Then the affluent man saw that his children had got out safely and were sitting unharmed in an open area at a crossroad. He was relieved, happy, and joyful. The children said to their father, "Please, give us the toys you promised. Those 3 carts, one yoked to a sheep, one to a deer, and one to an ox." O Shariputra. The affluent man then gave each child the same kind of large cart. These carts were tall and spacious, adorned with various jewels, and encircled with railings full of hanging bells. On the top of the carts were canopies, all decorated with the various kinds of jewels. These carts were draped with jeweled cords and hung with flower garlands. They were thickly piled with fabrics, and red pillows had been placed about. These carts were each yoked to an ox with a spotlessly white hide. These oxen had beautiful bodies with powerful muscles, even gaits, and were as swift as the wind. And there were many attendants guarding them. Why did the affluent man give these carts? Because the man had great and immeasurable wealth, and his abundant storehouses were full. He thus thought further, "Since my treasure has no limit, I should give my children inferior carts. These are my children, or rather, I should not give my children inferior carts. These are my children, and I love them all equally. I have an immeasurable number of large carts, such as these, decorated with the 7 treasures. I should equally distribute them to each child without discrimination." Why is this? Even if I gave carts like these to everyone in the country, their number would not be exhausted. Why should I not give them to my own children? At that time, the children each climbed into a great cart and had an unprecedented experience, one beyond their original expectations. O Shariputra, what do you think about this? This affluent man gave to his children equally a large cart decorated with precious treasures. Has he deceived them or not? Shariputra replied, "No, Bhagavat. The affluent man only tried to help his children escape from the disastrous fire. He saved their lives and did not deceive them. This is by no means a deception. Why? Because by saving their lives, they obtained marvelous toys. Moreover, they were saved from the burning house by skillful means. O Bhagavat, if this affluent man had not given them even the smallest cart, it would not have been a deception. Why is this? Because this affluent man thought before, I will help my children escape with skillful means. This is why it was not a deception. How much more so since the affluent man, knowing that he had immeasurable wealth and wanting to benefit them equally, gave each of his children a large ox cart. The Buddha said to Shariputra, "Splendid, splendid. It is exactly as you have said, O Shariputra. The Tathagata is also just like this. That is to say, as the father of the entire world, he permanently dispels fear, distress, anxiety, ignorance, and blindness. He has attained immeasurable wisdom, insight, power, and fearlessness, as well as great transcendent powers, and the power of wisdom. He has attained the perfection of skillful means and of wisdom. With his great mercy and compassion, he incessantly and indefatigably seeks the welfare of all beings and benefits them all. The Tathagata appears in the triple world, which is like a decaying old house on fire, to rescue sentient beings from the fire of birth, old age, illness, and death, anxiety, sorrow, suffering, distress, delusion, blindness, and the three poisons of greed, hatred, and ignorance. Thus, he leads and inspires sentient beings and causes them to attain highest complete enlightenment. The Tathagata see all sentient beings burning in the fire of birth, old age, illness, and death, anxiety, sorrow, suffering, and distress. Because of the desire of the five senses and the desire for monetary profit, they also experience various kinds of suffering. Because of their attachment and pursuits, they experience various kinds of suffering in the present and in the future. They will suffer in the states of existence of hell, animals, and hungry ghosts, pretas. If they are born in the heavens or in the human world, they will experience a variety of sorrows, such as suffering from poverty and destitution, separation from loved ones, or suffering from encounters with those they dislike. All those sentient beings are immersed in such sorrows, they rejoice and play. They are not aware, shocked, startled, or disgusted, nor do they seek release. Running around in the burning house of the triple world, they experience great suffering, and yet they do not realize it. So, like most teachings are offered by the Buddha, this one is completely full of symbolism and allegory. So I'll attempt to break some of that apart, like he started to do at the end of the teaching. So in the fire sermon, Buddha talks about our experience here on earth, and he compares the world to a fire. He says that it's burning with greed, burning with anger, burning with ignorance, with hatred, with sorrow, despair. It is burning. And the burning house in this discussion is a throwback to the fire sermon. We are the children of the Buddha, and we are trapped in the burning house. And we're suffering. But we're so caught up in playing with our toys that we either don't know or don't care that we're suffering. This is the alcoholic who knows they have a drinking problem, but they can't put down the bottle. This is the workaholic who has a family at home who needs him, but he can't bring himself to leave the office. This is the thief who keeps getting caught and keeps creating suffering for themselves and for others, but they can't bring themselves to make an honest living. And the reason for this is because the things that cause our suffering are like toys. It's not always bad. We have short-term pleasure, and we get so caught up in that we don't think of the long-term suffering that comes from it. We don't see the burning house because we're stuck on our toy train or our toy rocking horse. This is why right view and right intention are the first tenets of the Noble Eightfold Path. We have to see the world clearly, see the burning house, and realize what's going on. But like children, we are stubborn. And just because the Buddha tells us, hey, you're hurting yourself, hey, you're hurting other people, we don't want to let go of our toys. So out of his immeasurable wisdom and compassion, he motivates us to let go of our suffering by telling us that there are bigger, better toys outside. If we'll just leave the burning house, if we'll just let go of the short-term pleasure we get from greed, from anger, from ignorance, we'll have an even better thing called enlightenment. And there are various ways, very skillful means that we do this in Buddhism. There's the bowing, there's the chanting, there's the meditation, there's the Sutra study. All of these are toys. They're skillful means meant to get us out of the burning house. This is why when people say, well, if I'm already enlightened, why do I need to practice Buddhism? This is why. Because we have to motivate ourselves to let go of our toys, whatever they may be. And once we get out of the house, what do we find there? We find oxen tied to carts piled high full of treasures. Now, this isn't what Buddha promised us. He promised us 3 carts that were yoked to a sheep and to 2 other animals that I can't remember right this moment. But the 3 animals represent the 3 treasures, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. These are the toys, the skillful means that Buddha uses to encourage us to get out of the house. We take refuge in the Buddha. We take refuge in the Dharma. We take refuge in the Sangha. And as we do that, we let go of our toys and we move towards the door. And then once we get outside, we notice something even bigger and better than we were promised. A cart full of treasure and an oxen. Now, the oxen here is very important because in the 10 ox herding pictures, the ox represents our mind. And there's a young boy who has to chase the ox when it escapes. And at a certain point, he can't find it anymore. And he finds it and he trains it. And he rides it back into town. And then both the boy and the ox disappear. So the goal of Buddhism, the goal of all the practices that we do, the meditation, the prostration, the sutra study, the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, the Four Noble Truths, the Noble Eightfold Path, all of it is simply to train our mind, to train the oxen. Why do we do that? So that we can realize our own enlightened nature, our Buddha nature, which we couldn't see before because, again, we're stuck with our toys inside the house. Now, in the reading, you'll also notice that each oxen was surrounded by numerous attendants. Who are all of these attendants around our cart, around our mind? Well, these are the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas. This is Kannan, this is Jizo, this is Amida. This is our friends and families and coworkers. All of the Buddhas of the 10 directions that we couldn't see before. Once we train our mind, once we leave the burning house, what do you know? They're all around us. And we end up in a situation that's even better than what we had before, because now we have a clean, enlightened mind. Now we realize our own enlightened nature. And we realize we're not alone in all of this. We are surrounded by Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who are helping us along the path. Now, here's the thing, however. We don't leave the burning house just once. It'd be nice if we did, but we don't. We leave the burning house, we see the ox, we see the cart, we see the attendants, we have that clean, pure mind, and then we go back in the house to play with our toys again. We're humans, we make mistakes. So once again, the Buddha calls out to us, hey, there's even better toys outside. And then we remember, oh yeah, Buddhism, Enlightenment, all that. So we leave the burning house again. We put down the causes of our suffering. And once again, we see our enlightened mind. And then we go back into the burning house because we're human and we do that. And this is the cycle of our practice, the cycle between suffering and nirvana. This is why Shantideva famously said, samsara is nirvana, because they're part of the same life cycle. We go in, we go out, we're peaceful, we're not. This is a part of the practice. That's why consistent practice is so important, because we go out into the world, we go out into the burning house, and maybe we have a tense discussion with a coworker, maybe we have a family member who does something we don't like, maybe we struggle in our job or our appointments, and we're trapped in the burning house. And then we come home or we go to the temple and we meditate and we chant. Again, skillful means the toys that Buddha gave us, that he promised us, that pull us out of the house so that we can once again see our clean, pure mind. And every time we do this cycle, we stay outside a little bit longer. Our toys have a little bit less control over us. We see the burning house more clearly. This is why when we do guided meditation at the start of meditation and sutra study, I always remind you, if your mind wanders, that's okay. That's what minds do. We just notice, oh, I'm here again. And then we come back to the meditation, back to the breathing, back to the visualization, over and over and over again. And what's really beautiful about this is the Buddha, the Tathagata, being the Father with immeasurable wealth. He treats all of us equally. Just like all of the children in the story equally got good oxen and good carts, we are all equally Buddha. We're all equally able to realize enlightenment because the Buddha loves all of his children equally. So we never have to worry about being less than, or the quality of our practice, or if we're doing it right. We just need to practice. Understanding, as the sutra said, that we are Buddhas, that the gifts we realize and attain are the same that everyone else will realize and attain. No need to compete with one another. And that as we leave the burning house of our suffering over and over and over again, we'll be more and more comfortable sitting outside until eventually we attain nirvana and we decide to leave the burning house altogether. Amitabha. So that was the talk for today. I hope it was helpful. We'll now start the Q&A portion of this evening's meditation and sutra study. If you have a comment or question either about tonight's reading, my Dharma talk, the Lotus Sutra, Buddhism in general, or if you just have a comment you'd like to share with the rest of the Sangha, just type that in the chat and I'll be sure to respond. While we're waiting for those to come in, I'll make a few announcements. Meditation and Sutra study takes place every Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Just like this video and subscribe to the channel. That way you'll be notified when the live stream starts in case you'd like to participate. We also do Dharma Sunday every Sunday, also at this channel, also at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That practice consists of simply a Dharma talk followed by a Q&A. Looks like we have some comments coming in. The first came from Allison Griffin. She did the clap emoji, the bow emoji, followed by a blue heart. Thank you, Allison. I appreciate that. So good to have you here. Frank Ingiosi also did the bow emoji. Thank you, Frank. Always great to see you taking part in the live streams. Daniel said hello. Hello, Daniel. It's good to see you again. Thanks for joining us. Check at the back said, do you think the 5 skandhas have ultimate reality? That is a good question. We could talk a lot about the 5 skandhas and ultimate reality. And I would say the question is a little bit misstated. It's not so much do the 5 skandhas have ultimate reality? Rather, are they a part of ultimate reality? And I would say they are. I would say they are part of ultimate reality in the same way that the tail side of a coin is also part of the coin, in the same way that the heads is also part of the coin. The issue with the 5 skandhas, however, is they are the burning house. And if we get too attached to them, if we don't realize the suffering that they cause, we are not able to see our own enlightened mind. We're not able to see the white oxen with pure hides. So I would say they're part of ultimate reality in the same way that nirvana is part of samsara. But we have to be willing and learn how to let them go. They're useful. You know, we need them in order to move through the world, through life, but we have to be willing and able to put the toys down when they no longer serve us. We have to see the fire around us and know when and how to escape. Good question. Check at the back also said, cheers for the live, dude. Cheers to you. Thank you so much for joining us. I always remind everyone that your presence is a big part of the practice, that you just being here is an important part of the Sangha. Sangha, again, being one of the 3 jewels. So you being here, everyone being here makes the discussion and the Dharma practice that much more powerful for everyone. So thank you. Frank Ingiosi said, fantastic talk tonight, just excellent, such resonance. Oh, wow, thanks. That's very high praise, Frank. I'm glad you enjoyed it. One thing about the Buddha is he never misses. Every time you study from the sutras, you get something from it. That's why I really enjoy these meditation and sutra evenings, because it's almost like when I'm prepping for these, no matter what part of the sutra I open to, I always find something impactful that I want to share with you all. So I'm glad that the Buddhist teaching is resonating with you, and I'm glad that I'm able to share it. Divad Buddha X. Actually, you have another comment earlier that I missed. I apologize for that, Divad. You said, focus on a leaf, you'll miss the tree. Focus on the tree, you'll miss the forest. Very well said. Extremely well said. And very, very true, and an excellent representation of our part of the Buddha body, or the Dharmakaya. We are a leaf on a tree. And if we only focus on our leaf portion, we don't see the tree. You know, if we only focus on our toys, we don't see the burning house. We don't see the burning house, we can't see our own enlightened mind. So yes, we definitely, most certainly need to see the big picture. Good insight. Divad Buddha X also said, what did Buddha mean when he touched the ground and said, the earth's my witness? My friend, you just happened on one of my favorite teachings of the Buddha. So I thank you for that, because when I finally understood this just blew my mind. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with the story, when Buddha realized enlightenment, this is after he left the palace, this is after he was an ascetic wanderer for 6 years, after he almost died and was rescued by Sujata. He sat under the Bodhi tree and stated, even if the flesh melts from my bones, I will not leave this spot until I found a way to end all sorrow. And he sat for many nights and many days, and he was tempted by Mara, who is a demon. He's the god of lies and desire. He's also a representative of our own temptations, our own attachments to greed, anger, and ignorance. So actually, as we read through the sutras, you'll see there's not just reference to one Mara, there's reference to many Maras and the subjugation of many Maras. Vimalakirti talks about this, the subjugation of our own greed, anger, ignorance, etc. And he's tempted with wealth, he's tempted with conquest, he's tempted through sexuality, and he refuses everything. And finally, he's tempted with doubt, which is something that we all have to work through. Am I really a Buddha? Am I doing this right? Can I realize enlightenment? And what's beautiful about this moment is instead of going into a long philosophical treatise, instead of giving some deep teaching with his mouth, Buddha simply touched the earth and said, "The earth is my witness." So Mara asks, what gives you the right to realize enlightenment? What gives you the right to be the awakened one? Who is your witness? Meanwhile, Mara has a host, an army behind him, bearing witness for him. This is all of our defiled thoughts. This is the Saha world embodied in Mara's army. And Buddha simply touches the earth. Sorry, my cat wants to be involved. And he says, "The earth is my witness." So what's he referencing in that moment? He's referencing everyday life. I am the Buddha. Why? Because I exist. I have the right, the ability to realize enlightenment. Why? Because I'm practicing the Dharma. It's that simple. This is Hongaku. This is the teaching of original enlightenment embodied by the Buddha at the very beginning of what we could call Buddhist practice. I am the Buddha. Why? Because I touch the earth. The earth is my witness. That's why when we do the guided meditation, I have us send our energy down into the earth and pull it up into ourselves, the same way the Buddha did. It's a reminder of our own spiritual power and the power of the earth, which we can call upon, just like he did. So I could go on about that forever, Divad, but that's the short version, is that he was simply stating, he was giving the teaching of original enlightenment, and he was giving the teaching of enlightenment in everyday life. Let's see. Daniel said, for Q&A, will we read Tathagata Garbha Sutra? I'd like to. Yeah, we will get to that eventually. There are a lot of sutras that we'll be going over this year. The Tathagata Garbha Sutra, the Faith in the Mahayana Sutra. We're doing the Lotus Sutra now. We've done the Vimalakirti Sutra. We'll do the Pure Land Sutras. So I haven't really picked out an order yet. I'm just kind of letting it come to me, but that is on the list. The Srimala Sutra, we'll go through all of them, definitely. Frank Ingiosi says, thank you, Sensei. Thank you, Frank. I appreciate you being here. Daniel, opinion on Tibetan Buddhism. Well, it's certainly a part of Buddhism. It certainly helped a lot of people realize enlightenment. Going back to the teaching of skillful means, which we talked about with toys, one way to look at all the many Buddhisms that we have is that they are all toys that the Buddha uses to get us out of the burning house. This is why sectarianism is so silly, right? This idea that Zen Buddhism is better than Tibetan Buddhism, or Tibetan Buddhism is better than Theravada Buddhism. It's all Buddhism. And in the end, they're all toys. They're an ends to a means. They're the skillful means that help us realize enlightenment. So I do believe that Tibetan Buddhism is very valid and very powerful. I will say I have next to no training in Tibetan Buddhism, so I can't really speak intelligently about any of the practices. But if anyone is looking for a spiritual home and you really like magic, you really like a focus on the supernatural, you like deities and visualizations, then Tibetan Buddhism is probably right up your alley. The reason for that is it's Indian Buddhism, when Padmabhava, I believe his name was, or Padmasava, when he came to Tibet and Nepal, what he found there was Bon, which is a sort of shamanism that existed there at the time. So again, using the power of skillful means, instead of telling the people that your religion is false, Buddhism is the true religion, he blended Buddhism with what was already there. He used the power of ritual to subjugate the deities and the demons that already existed in that land, and he turned them into Dharma protectors. Which is why if you go into a Tibetan Buddhist temples, there are all kinds of paintings of dakinis and thangkas and statues of entities with very harsh, angry expressions. Those are all Dharma protectors. They were shamanic entities that Padmasava, through the power of ritual, turned into Dharma protectors. And then he used those Dharma protectors to help the people of Tibet and Nepal realize enlightenment. A perfect embodiment of what we read tonight in the sutra. David Oliver did the bow emoji. Thank you, David. Bows to you. Glad to have you here again. Asian Society said, Sensei Kakuyo, are you one of the very, very few Black African teachers in Buddhism? Are you reaching out to African people worldwide? Well, I certainly am a Black person. So yeah, I am Black. Obviously, I am African American. So I am a Dharma teacher, and I am trying to make the teachings as available as I can to as many people as I can. So yeah, absolutely. Yes. Alison Griffin said, form is emptiness and emptiness is form. Yes, absolutely. The Heart Sutra comes, well, I don't know if it's right to say it comes from the Lotus Sutra, but it's giving the same teaching. This is what Buddha was referencing, going back to Zivat's question about touching the earth. Our enlightenment isn't separate from the earth. It isn't separate from everyday life. They are one and the same. They come together. Nirvana is samsara, form is emptiness, daily life is enlightenment. Very well put, Allison. Check at the back said, could you give some opinion on the teaching of Shunyata on a metaphysical level? Well, we could be here all night, sir, or ma'am, if I did that, but let's see. Shunyata essentially is the teaching of emptiness, which we should be careful to not confuse with nothingness. So emptiness doesn't mean that there's nothing here. What it does mean is that we are part of a much larger whole. We are part of the Buddha body, the Dharmakaya, which is the Trikaya teaching, the Dharmakaya, the Sambhogakaya, the Nirmanakaya, which is us. A way to think of it is we are leaves on a tree. So we are a leaf. We have our own individual existence. But at the same time, we are part of a tree, which is much bigger and greater than ourselves. They're both true at the same time. People sometimes make the mistake of Shunyata when they talk about it. They say there's no self. And of course, that begs the question, well, then who's talking right now? So we don't teach no self in Buddhism. We teach non-self, meaning we don't exist singularly. You can also think of Shunyata as a reminder that we are part of a family. So you are an individual. And if you're in the West, you have a last name, which you share with your parents and your siblings, and you're part of that family as well. So you're an individual and you are part of a larger family. That's Shunyata. That's emptiness. But in the more metaphysical sense, what Shunyata means is that we are all part of Buddha. We're all part of a singular Buddha mind, which is known as, or Buddha body, which is known as the Dharmakaya. Let's see. Daniel said, Sensei, could you share your email with us? Absolutely. My email is sameoldzen, all one word, @gmail.com. That's sameoldzen@gmail.com. And if you have other questions that you'd like to email to me at a later time or a later date, you can reach me there. Beck Johansson says, does your book cover all this that you are talking about, Sensei? And then you bowed. Well, thank you for that, Beck. Yes, my book does go into all of this. Not all of this, but a lot of it. So my book that Beck is referencing, Perfectly Ordinary Buddhist Teachings for Everyday Life, there's actually a sample chapter of the book you can read for free. It's in the description for this talk, and it's available on Amazon, wherever books are sold. But to answer your question, Beck, the book primarily goes over the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path, which are the core of Buddhist teachings. They're the original toys, if you will, that Buddha uses to help us escape the burning house of this Saha world. And my book focuses on those teachings because if you understand the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path, not just intellectually, but truly understand them, you understand all of Buddhism. It all makes sense at that point. It's also important to note that some of the first lectures that Buddha gave after he realized enlightenment were regarding the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path. So I focused on them because I wanted to create a strong foundation for anyone who's just getting into Buddhism, so that no matter what type of Buddhism you practice, you know what's going on. So that's the focus of my book. Let's see, I was going to say something else. So going back to those being the core of Buddha's teachings, you have to remember he had an experience under the Bodhi tree that really cannot be put into words, right? It's like telling someone what a sunrise looks like or what jasmine tea tastes like. You have to taste the tea, you have to see the sunrise, but you can use your words to give a little taste of it. And that's what he did with the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path. The Four Noble Truths are the philosophy, and the Noble Eightfold Path is the practices and the practical application. So that's what the book focuses on, and that's why it focuses on those things. So yeah, excellent question. I hope that answers it. Daniel, favorite books on Buddhism, not including sutras? Well, that's a tough one. Let's see. I'm going to cheat and look over at some of my bookshelves. So one book that really changed my life was The Center Within. It was written by Reverend Gyome Kubose, who was a Pure Land Buddhist teacher. And what I really liked about The Center Within is it really focuses on this Buddhism in everyday life piece. It's actually funny. So I read the book and I was like, oh, this is great. Very insightful. I learned a lot. And then as I started studying the sutras, the book made even more sense. And I realized, oh, this essay comes from the Lotus Sutra. This essay comes from the Nirvana Sutra. This essay comes from the Vimalakirti Sutra. So what Reverend Gyome does is very sneakily, he gives very profound Buddhist teachings in a way that they don't seem profound. They almost don't even seem Buddhist. It almost seems like he's just giving you good life advice. And it's only later through further study that you realize, oh, wow, that was kind of deep. So The Center Within is one book that was really helpful in my practice. Another one was Everyday Zen by Reverend Charlotte Joko Beck. And that was another one that was really good on bringing the teachings back into everyday life. Because what I found early in my practice is a lot of the books I read were very philosophical. And they were clearly either geared towards someone who was a monastic or to someone who was a professor in a university. They weren't really geared towards someone who's just trying to learn Buddhism and use it to get through their workday or their family gathering, right? So everyday Zen was very helpful in that way. I feel bad because I'm going to think of 10 other books I want to mention as soon as we're done. I think I'm just going to have to start doing videos, I think, where I like give reviews of Buddhist books and tell you why I think they're helpful. But I think those two are good. Another one is Letters to a Dead Friend About Zen. It's just came out last year from Reverend Brad Warner. It's really good. It's written in a very interesting way. He's writing articles to a friend of his who's recently passed away. And what I like about Brad's books is he does a good job of not just explaining the teachings, but then also explaining, oh, and this is how it helped me, or this is why it's useful. And he's very real, which I respect and appreciate a lot. And he'll go into some of his own struggles with the practice as well. Like, this is something I don't do well. I'm trying to do better. So it's cool. Full disclosure, I've actually had the great joy of meeting Reverend Brad Warner in person. And he's very cool. He's actually exactly like he comes across in his books. Very personable, very open to talking about the Dharma. So I definitely recommend that. I also recommend one of his older books, Hardcore Zen. That was one of the first books I read about Buddhism that really made sense to me. Again, just because it wasn't so philosophical and it was more just, okay, this is the practice. This is how it can help you. So I'd probably start with those three if you're looking for other books to buy about Buddhism outside of the sutras. I will also say, again, that you really can't go wrong with studying the sutras. Even if you don't understand them the first time around, they plant seeds in your mind. So my first time reading the Lotus Sutra was kind of far out there. It's like, who are all these Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and why is this house on fire? But, as I read the Lotus Sutra and then I studied other things, and things I read in the Lotus Sutra made sense. So yeah, I think that's a good start. And, like I said, I'll think of a million more as soon as I'm done. If you guys have your own books that you really enjoy about Buddhism, please put them in the chat. That way we can all continue reading and learning together. Let's see. Check at the back said, thank you, Alex. I really appreciate time taken to answer these. I'm currently trying to write an essay on Shunyata and witness consciousness. Do you have an opinion on witnessing consciousness? Whew, yes, but I don't think you'll like my opinion. So when we talk about witnessing consciousness and seeing our mind for what it is, I think that can be a little bit of a trap at times. I think we can get caught up in trying to have a sort of esoteric, a sort of mystical experience that distracts us from our practice, right? And we're so caught up in having that enlightenment experience. We're so caught up in seeing the root of all things, of seeing our consciousness exactly as it is, that we can get the regular, normal, everyday practices that, can get us there. So I think trying to witness consciousness can be useful. I think it can also be dangerous. So we need to be careful with that. Let's see. I also think we should remember that our consciousness is an illusion, just like everything else in samsara. So when we talk about consciousness, what we have to remember is that our personal consciousness is only part of the larger Buddha consciousness, the larger Buddha mind. And this is why I say it can be a bit of a trap, because we get so focused on our own consciousness that we forget to look at the larger consciousness that we're a part of. So I think it can be a useful practice. It's important, but we have to be careful to not get trapped by it. Beck Johansson said, I just bought your book, but do I need to buy anything else? I am a newbie. Oh, wow. Well, thank you. First off, Beck, that's very, very kind of you. I would love to hear your thoughts on the book. Send me an email, leave a review. Just let me know what you think. I love getting feedback. In terms of anything else you need to buy, I mean, honestly, to practice Buddhism, you need very little. Toys can be helpful. I have lots of toys behind me. I have a Nembutsu scroll. I have an altar with a Butsudan, candles, incense, a Buddha, etc. But really, the only thing you need to practice Buddhism is yourself. So I would start, just read the book. Email me if you have any questions. Just study the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path. I think starting out, I wouldn't go out and buy a bunch of stuff, just because the practice is going to be different for you than it is for me, than it is for the person next door. So I really recommend you let it grow organically. Over time, you'll think, oh, I really wish I could make incense offerings. I'll buy an incense burner. Or I think it'd be helpful if I had a Buddha statue to look at. I'll buy that, that sort of thing. So, but starting out, you have a book to read, maybe buy a cushion to sit on when you meditate. And beyond that, I'd say just start there. Start with the meditation, like we did at the start of the practice. Chanting can also be useful. I myself chant Nimbutsu, Namo Amida Butsu, thus the scroll. So do some meditation, do some chanting. Don't put too much pressure on yourself on how long you need to chant or how long you need to meditate. As long as we're practicing, we're moving a step closer to enlightenment. So when you meditate, I recommend just starting with 1 minute. And then either you'll decide you can do more than 1 minute, or you'll decide 1 minute is plenty. Just whatever you think works best for you. And then, like I said, over time, you'll start to get feelings like, oh, incense offerings are interesting to me. I want to do that. Oh, I really like paintings. I'll buy a painting of the Buddha, what have you. But for right now, you have the book. I'd maybe buy a cushion and then see what happens after that. Let's see. Daniel said, where did you get your robes? I'm interested. That's a good question. So I actually purchased these from Amazon, believe it or not. And I didn't start wearing them until I was ordained as a Buddhist lay minister. It was when I started wearing robes. They're not a requirement for practice, but I like wearing robes because they're a reminder that I'm doing something special. I almost compare it to having a uniform that you wear for work. So let's say you're a business executive and you put on a suit and tie, and this tells you, oh, I'm going into the office. I have work to do. Well, when I wear my robes, that's a reminder for me that I'm about to do the Buddha's work. So it puts me in a more restful mind state. It helps me focus when I'm out doing chaplaincy. If I'm at a demonstration or something of that nature, then the robes remind me to not get caught up in what's happening around me, to live and embody the Buddhist teachings. So the robes can be a useful toy. I found that they've been helpful to me over the years. Not a requirement, but something to look into if you think it might be helpful for your own personal practice. Daniel also said, how long do you meditate daily, Sensei? So I personally meditate for 1 hour a day, and then I chant Nimbutsu, Namo Amida Butsu. I chant Nimbutsu 3 times. I also do a light and an incense offering in the space right behind me. So that's my practice. I'll actually walk you through the entire liturgy. So I do a bow. I light the candles. I light the incense. So for my light and incense offering, I do another bow. I back up from the altar 3 steps. I do 3 full prostrations. So going from standing down to my forehead touching the floor. After that, I sit on my cushion. I meditate for 1 hour. And then I chant Nimbutsu 3 times. And that's my practice. And I do that every day. Again, I've been doing this for a number of years. That's what works for me. So don't feel like you have to do it exactly that way. Buddha gave us a number of toys and robes and mala beads, incense, etc. So you can think of it like a toy box and try to figure out what toys you like the best. And again, with the meditation, don't think you have to sit for an hour. 1 minute is plenty. As long as you're sitting, that means you're moving closer towards enlightenment. Check out the back side. I really like Analytical Buddhism by Abhari. I have not read that, but I'll have to check that out. That sounds like a good one. You also said, could I ask what help an altar, a toy is? Yeah, absolutely. So the altar for me helps in a couple of ways. So you'll see on my altar I have the Butsudan, which is something you'll see in Japanese Buddhism. Traditionally, it was a place where the families, a scroll with the name of family members would be kept, kind of like a genealogy tree. Also, if a member of the family died, their ashes would be placed inside the Butsudan. So if you go inside of a Pure Land Buddhist temple, for example, you'll see very large, very ornate Butsudans. That one behind me, I was gifted that by one of my teachers, Reverend Reverend Koyo Kubose, who is the son of Reverend Gyome Kubose, during my authorization ceremony to be a Buddhist teacher. And it does a couple things for me, the altar in general. One, it provides a really excellent focus for my practice. And it's a reminder every day. So I look at the Buddha, I look at the Butsudan, I look at the earth, and it kind of pulls me out of myself. So maybe I'm feeling angry, maybe I'm feeling frustrated. And then I see the Buddha sitting peacefully and, oh, wait, I don't have to do this. You know, there's another deeper part of myself that I can tap into if I want. You know, it's a toy that pulls me out of the burning house. It's just a reminder of the Buddha, of his teachings. It also allows me to do bowing practice, which is an important part for me. So I struggled a lot with pride and anger early on in my practice. To be honest, sometimes anger still pops up. And the bowing is very useful because it's such a humbling practice. You know, I'm literally, especially when I do the full prostrations, I'm making myself so small. I'm no longer the center of the universe. So, and doing that practice helps to alleviate any anger that I'm feeling, any pride that I'm feeling, because you can't be angry and proud and bow at the same time. You know, it just doesn't work. You can be angry or you can bow, but you can't do both. And that's part of the practice, is that the practices themselves have power. We forget that in the West because we think everything is intellectual, but just the physical embodiment of the practice through the bowing, through the chanting can be very powerful. And for me, the altar helps with that. Having the altar provides a focus. It also provides a space for me to engage in other practices like meditation, like bowing, like chanting. And then also it just gives me a set place to practice. Just like my robes, when I put on my robes, I know, okay, I'm doing the Buddha's work right now. I need to focus, I need to pay attention. When I'm in front of my altar, it's the same thing. It's no different than if you go into an office building and, okay, I'm at work, I'm in my cubicle, I'm typing my reports, I'm sitting in front of my altar, we're doing Buddhism now. It's also a great reminder of all the people who have helped me and supported me along the way. So the Butsudan is a reminder of my Sangha. And my teachers, the Buddha statue is a reminder of the Buddha and his teachings. The candles and the incense allow me to do offerings, which help subjugate greed and anger, and ignorance, like I mentioned before. So it's a useful tool in that way. Divad Buddha X says, the first Buddhist book I read was The Heart of Buddhist Teachings by Thich Nhat Hanh. I got into Buddhism thanks to a YouTube channel called Dare to Do Motivation. Okay, that's excellent. Heart of Buddha. I have read that. It is excellent. Highly recommend. Not familiar with that YouTube channel, but I'll check it out. Thank you for sharing, Divad. Allison Griffin said, I made a mala long before I truly started using it with devotion. That's fair. That's fair. I'm impressed that you made a mala. I have not made a mala, but I've been gifted malas. So this one that I wear on my left wrist was actually gifted to me by one of my fellow lay ministers during our ordination ceremony. He was a Tibetan Buddhist, actually. So I learned a lot from him as we were going through the training. And that was part of his practice. He liked to give gifts. So going back to toys and how they're useful, this is a reminder of my Sangha. It's also a reminder of my good friend. So I like wearing it for that reason. Reminder that I'm part of something bigger than myself. This mala was actually gifted to me by one of my teachers, Venerable Shi Ying Fa, who is the abbot of Cloudwater Zendo. He is a Chan Buddhist monk. And I took the precepts with him several years ago, and I was gifted this. And this is just a reminder of the monks of the monastic community. It's very important now since, we can't go to the temple and practice in person, that, the monks and the nuns are supporting me in my teachings. And this one I actually got when I was at Spirit Rock Meditation Center, the black one. And I got that. I was at Spirit Rock. I gave a talk, and I was actually part of a gathering called The Gathering. It was a group of Buddhist teachers of Black African descent. We all came together and practiced together for a week. And then we opened it up to the Mahasangha, and even more people came in, and we gave talks and we fellowshiped together and experienced Spirit Rock Meditation Center together out in California, which was a really beautiful experience. So when I wear this, it just reminds me of that. It also reminds me of an experience I had there, which I'll share with you. So at Spirit Rock, there's a very tall hill that you have to walk up and down every day. So the dormitories are at the top. That's where we slept. And the cafeteria is at the bottom. Some of you have probably heard this story before, so I'll make it brief. Long story short, I'm there in the summer. I'm wearing my robes. It's very hot. My feet hurt because I'm walking up and down this hill every day, and all the useless thoughts come into my head. I'm angry. Why is it so hot? Why do my feet hurt? Why is this hill so long? Blah, blah, blah. Thankfully, this is what Buddhism is for, right? To pull us out of the burning house. I was reminded that nirvana is samsara. So what I did was I made the hill part of my spiritual practice. And every time I walked up or down the hill, I chanted Nembutsu, Namu Amida Butsu. I take refuge in Amida Buddha, Amida being the Buddha of infinite light. And I just chanted this over and over again as I walk up and down the hill. Namu Amida Butsu, Namu Amida Butsu, Namu Amida Butsu. And the practice, like it always does, it affects you. It changes you. And suddenly all that anger and irritation became gratitude. It became joy. It became happiness. I was happy to be in California. I was happy to be around so many gifted and spiritual teachers. I was just grateful to be alive. And that hill, instead of being a source of suffering, became a very important part of my practice. And I was actually sad when I left because I wouldn't have to walk up the hill anymore. So how was I going to do my chanting? So when I wear this black mala, It's starting to turn brown. It's wearing out a little bit. But point is, it reminds me of that whatever suffering I'm experiencing right now, if I just change my mind just a little bit, then I can make it a source of joy and it can help me move closer towards enlightenment. So, yeah, those are my mala. Let's see. Beck Johansson says, what is a sutra? Should I read these two? I don't know anything about this. A friend told me to start watching you, and no, I'm very curious. And then the bow emoji. Oh, wow. Thank you. Wow. That's cool. Well, say thank you to your friends. I'm glad that they appreciate the channel and that you've joined us. I hope you continue to do so. A sutra, very simply, sutra is Sanskrit, and it means thread. So when we can think of all the Buddhist books and all the Buddhist sutras specifically, these are threads. They're tying the Buddha Dharma together. It's like a robe. This robe looks like one piece, but if you look closely, it's countless number of threads. Buddhism is the same way. And these threads are embodied in the sutras, in the teachings of the Buddha. And what's really powerful about these sutras is we're either reading the words of the Buddha himself or we're reading the words of his contemporaries. So we're reading Queen Srimala in the Srimala Sutra. We're reading from Vimalakirti in the Vimalakirti Sutra. We're reading the words of the Buddha himself in the Lotus Sutra, right? And as we read all of these sutras, all of these threads, it ties the Dharma together and it all starts to make sense. This is why I started this meditation and sutra study, because it is so important that we read and listen and understand all of these threads. Because I didn't understand the center within, which isn't a sutra, but it is a Dharma book. I didn't understand the center within until I read the Lotus Sutra. I didn't understand the Lotus Sutra until I read the Vimalakirti Sutra. I didn't understand the Vimalakirti Sutra until I read the Nirvana Sutra. So it all ties together. So that's what a sutra is. Very simply, it's a Buddhist book, specifically one that is read and spoken of in the voice of the Buddha or one of his contemporaries. And that's what we'll be covering over the course of this year and the coming years in meditation and sutra studies. So, yeah, if you'd like to learn more about the sutras, please continue joining us every week, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard. We're doing the Lotus Sutra now, and if you go back to previous videos, we covered the Vimalakirti Sutra. Daniel said, sutras are like the Buddhist scriptures, brother. For example, Diamond Sutra, pretty good. Yes, the Diamond Sutra is excellent. That's another one that we'll be reading sometime in the future. And I think that's a good way to think of it, the Buddhist scriptures. We have lots of scriptures in Buddhism, so there's lots of reading if you're into that. Check at the back says, thanks, man. I hope as many people as possible get to hear you. You're clearly a kind, wise person, and I wish you all the best from Nottingham, England. Look after yourself, brother. Love. Oh, wow. Thank you. Love to you as well. All the way from Nottingham, England. Used to be you had to climb a mountain or go into a forest to learn the Dharma. Now we just turn on our laptops. We're so fortunate and lucky to be born in this time. It's awesome. And Allison Gerfin says, wonderful, Sensei. Thank you. Deep bows to all. Yes, absolutely. Deep bows to all of you. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. I always say I learned so much talking to you guys from your comments, from thinking through your questions. And, you know, I love to read the sutras on my own, but I love to read them with you even more. So thank you so much for joining. Any other comments or questions before we close for this evening? Going once, going twice. All right. Well, thank you so much again, everyone. I hope to see you again next week for meditation and sutra study. And if you'd like to join me this Sunday for Dharma Sunday, we can do that too. Also 6:30 p.m. Eastern. Oh, we have some more. Daniel says, when is the next session? So just to repeat myself, because I do that sometimes. We do meditation and sutra study every Wednesday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern at this channel. It's live streamed, or obviously you can catch the videos after. And that's the guided meditation, the sutra reading, Dharma talk, Q&A. Every Sunday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, we do Dharma Sunday, which is just a Dharma talk and a Q&A. I generally try to tie the Dharma talk into current events. So this past Sunday, we actually talked about a Pixar movie called Soul, if you want to check that out. Check at the back said, nope, just thanks, Sensei. Oh, thank you. Daniel said, much love, Sensei. Take care. Same to you. And another question. Beck Johansson said, can you explain what type of meditation? Because I do a talk meditation already. I concentrate on my breathing and listen to her talk. Is that the kind you're talking about? So there are many, many different types of meditation in Buddhism, many toys. There's silent illumination practice, which you'll see in Zen Buddhist temples. There's guided meditations, which you'll see more in Tibetan Buddhism. There's chanting, which is also a form of samadhi or a form of meditation, which we primarily see, we see it everywhere, but it's largely in Pure Land Buddhism, where they really don't do sitting meditation much. They primarily do the chanting. But what you described sounds excellent. Focus on the breath is very important. Breathing is so important. That's why I always start the guided meditation with the breath, because once we learn how to breathe, we can disconnect ourselves from so many different forms of suffering just with our breath. So I love the breathing. And then talk sounds like it's a guided meditation. So that works too. I'm a non-sectarian Buddhist teacher, meaning I was trained in the Pure Land and Zen traditions. However, I don't belong to any particular lineage. So I don't tell people to practice any particular type of meditation, though I do teach meditation. I just tell you to meditate. So if what you're doing is working for you, definitely stick with it. That sounds like an excellent practice. And Daniel said, I sent you an email. Hope you like it, Sensei. Cheers. Huh? Cheers to you, Daniel. Thanks so much. All right. Anything else before we close this evening? All right. Well, thanks so much, everyone. Until next time, Amitabha.